Good morning. I guess it's time to go. So in this panel, we're just going to talk to our CIOs and we have people from various areas, and they're going to talk about their concerns with cyber threats and maybe some things we're doing, the different schools and areas are doing to mitigate these issues. I know that this has become more and more of a thing. The recent court hack, the city of Wichita recently got hacked. It's becoming just a part of daily life to concern ourselves with these things more and more. We're just going to start off with introducing everybody. I'm Jessica Wolf. I'm with Wichita State University. I manage the desktop support team.
On? Okay. I'm Homer Manila. I'm the Director of Information Security at Washburn University.
I'm Dan Larrea with Wichita State University. I just take care of everything that is Windows server side in the data center.
Milissa Hawkins, Wichita State University, manager of the Technology Help Desk.
Mark Rodee, Wichita State University.
I'm the only one not from Wichita State.
He's our ringer.
Thank you.
Mark is our CISO. He forgot to tell you.
Yeah.
Not important.
Okay, so we're just going to start off with some very open-ended questions and see where the conversation goes. First of all, what kind of cyber threats cause you to lose the most sleep?
I think the easy answer to this is ransomware, because it ties into a lot of response strategies that aren't usually exercised well. We started doing a lot of tabletop exercises last year, some of it with help from our cyber insurance provider, and we plan to do them more often now, at least yearly, and possibly more with the President's cabinet as well.
I think the other problem with ransomware is how it evolves. I mean, you look at 2016 when WannaCry came out, that was, basically untargeted. Let's just kind of burn the world. Now it's an industry, and you see the numbers, and it's somewhere between 20 and 25 billion a year is made by ransomware. GDP of Jamaica. What we're seeing from a trend-wise is less people are paying the ransom, so that market is shrinking. Everybody goes, hey, that's a good thing. The bad guys are making less money. The bad news is they're bad guys. If you have a bad product in business, you would think of a new product. When you're the mafia and your product's not working, you think of a new product. And that product is, hey, we're going to go after the data subjects for the data we steal. So not only are you ransomed, but now they're, reaching out to your customers, telling them you were ransomed, or swatting your customers, or, creating a greater level of damage. So, when we look at this, that evolution of their, quote unquote business keeps occurring, and it keeps getting more and more painful for those impacted. So you look at this and you go, geez, where is this going to go next? Because, you do your tabletops, you plan, but you also have to be looking at, okay, what kind of response would we have if we started seeing X, Y, and Z?
Yeah, and I think also to pile on that, backups are not enough anymore. I mean, yeah, you can restore from a point in time if you do get hit with an attack, but now you got to worry about exfiltration of data and it being posted on the web, and that's a whole other calculus that you need to have, to do.
Well, that, and you have to ask your organization the most brutal question you can ask, and that is, who's most important? Because I don't know about you guys, from a customer perspective, all my customers think they're just as important as everybody else, and most of the time they are. However, if everything gets ransomed, we all know there's going to be certain parts of the organization that have to go first, no questions asked. And having that, truthfulness and thought to sit down with your leadership team and say who goes first, who's the priority in this case, is a hard one. Now, the very first one's always the easiest, life and safety. You gotta do that. But once you get past life and safety and then the IT infrastructure, now you start to get into some different areas of how you make money, where's your business going, who really has to be first. And it's hard to look at somebody and say, I'm sorry, we have to get emissions up first. You are number 5 in the queue. and do that before you have the emergency.
Great. So you guys were talking a lot about ransomware. Is that the threat that you're seeing the most often these days, or is there something else that's been creeping in as well?
Go ahead, Mark.
Well, most universities, I'm using weasel words, don't at me, but most universities see a lot of financial fraud. Students, especially international students, are great targets for, shipping fraud, fake jobs, those types of, I'm going to call them low dollar, somewhere in the $2,500 range per incident issues, and it's protecting those. Now, that doesn't come out of the university because it's a personal loss, but, that is something that you see a high frequency of. And so it's getting ahead of that, making sure we can protect those populations because, let's just face it, if a student comes in as a freshman, they get phished, they lose a large amount of money because they don't understand the language, they're going to probably go home for that next semester. They're going to say the risk is too high, I don't understand the culture, I don't understand what's going on. So it's important we reach out, not just to protect them as somebody coming to our university, but also, personally protect them because it's going through our system. And then also the last one is just the educational experience. If you as a new employee go to your employer and get phished, yes, you don't want to blame the victim, but a lot of organizations are going to blame the victim, especially if the victim says, I didn't know phishing was a thing. So, that's why we do student phishing simulations. It's to educate them. It's to make sure that, not only we can protect our systems, but when they go out into the workforce, they have that minimum level of knowledge of what phishing is.
I would love to do that.
Oh, it's fun.
Yeah, for students, yeah.
So from a help desk perspective, it's not just students, it's faculty and staff that are being impacted with phishing, and they have concerns. And so we get a fair number of calls regarding, is this a phishing attempt? And we're using KnowBe4, and so we ask them to use that phishing tool to help identify that, to try to train the culture. But there's lots of add-ons to web browsers that cause issues, and everybody freaks out. So we see it at a much different level, but it's still a fair percentage of our calls as well.
Speaking of students, we've found that spreading security awareness over there is a different animal than doing it with faculty and staff. So are you doing anything differently there? Because we require monthly phishing simulations as well as yearly mandatory training, security awareness training for our faculty and staff, but we know we can't do that for students. But it sounds like you're doing something maybe akin to that.
We're trying to figure out how to do that better because if you think about it, faculty and staff are motivated differently.
Yeah.
They're in a different place in their life. They have different things that they're more susceptible to. And a majority of your student population's in a different spot. So, the stuff that we've done, I don't feel is fully effective. I feel it could be far more effective just because it's, better ways to integrate into their culture and their communication methods. And if you say, what is that, Mark? I don't know. I wish I did because, that's the whole secret is how do you better speak to your core audience? And I think there's some ways of doing it that are going to be more effective than others.
And agreed. And we're still kind of trying to figure out what that means for us. I'm actually using the only staffer that I have employee that I have on staff is a student worker, and I'm using his perspective to kind of create blogs and posters and try and reach that student population in a different manner. One, because we don't have licensing yet in our KnowBe4 instance to do the same kind of training for our students, but I also expect that it's going to be also the same thing. It's not going to be as effective.
Well, one of the things we did with the phishing simulation was we actually launched it out of Microsoft's attack simulation tool. Why? Because I already have the licensing for that. It's free. Fortunately, it's not as nice as the tool. But when somebody clicked the link, were extraordinarily descriptive on what all the indicators are. Lots of pictures, something, that is short attention span.
Yeah.
Because they're just, they've got less, how do you put it? I don't want to say less interest, that's not necessarily true, but they've got less responsibility with the organization in a non-employment relationship.
Right. Yeah. This is also the TikTok generation too, so.
I was going to put a TikTok video out, and the school
I would
told
love
me
to see that, yeah.
They asked me not to. They said explicitly no Mark Rodee TikToks.
I'll learn some of those dances with you. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, let's do it. Okay.
Check out our dance video next Czech conference.
The two of you should get together and
Yep.
do one.
Yeah, well, of course, he's carrying this panel, so he could carry the TikTok video.
From the sysadmin point of view, I actually have a question for you guys and everybody in the room. Because I don't know how it's in your institutions, but I feel from the system admin point of view, our departments are the first people spamming our students. So how do you teach a student to differentiate between a marketing campaign from the student center saying an incentive of a $45 gift card if you go and take the survey versus a know before training? Or we had tons of departments on campus doing these kind of campaigns. Anybody can see this. The School of Business sends emails saying, gift cards. How do you have any policies or?
You might have to turn it on.
Okay, is this work? Okay. So one of the things that I'm trying to increase awareness of is branding. And so a lot of times when we send out notifications, we're using the default notifications built within the tool. So for instance, the Microsoft phishing simulator. Whenever we've used that, we get tons more complaints, not about the initial phish, but the alert that they have clicked on the phish. They see that as more fishy than the thing they clicked on. So that's one thing. So whenever you look at products, ask the important question, can you add branding to it? Can you put the Shocker logo on it? And
Right.
do you have an official vocab guideline set on when you're communicating to people? And the more standards you can put around that, I think you're going to get more recognition of this is an official email.
Yeah, I think another thing that would be really good there is when you're dealing with these third-party email senders for whatever campaigns that a lot of your departments will be sending students from, is making sure that their DMARC compliance is up to date too. So.
Well, and you hit a good point there. The Microsoft attack simulators branding of the training and the quality of the training so dismal, we just shut it off. We manually send out something afterwards to them because, frankly, it looks like a fish. It's so generic, you have no idea where it's coming from. Nothing's worse than phishing somebody twice.
And we do get those phone calls all the time.
Sorry, we left it on once.
Okay. I'm sorry.
So, hi. I also have a recommendation. It's a lengthy one, but it takes time. It's called BIMI. It's a standard that's coming out. So you can actually get your logo, since it's trademarked, and email providers such as Microsoft or Google will put that in your email when you send it out. So now it's like the verification check that you would normally have on certain platforms. So that way students can look up and specifically see that this came from our environment. But it does require DMARC, DKIM, SPF to be configured correctly. Also requires you to go through the Patent and Trademark Office to get it approved, and then it assigns a cert to it. So once you get all that, there's a cert assigned to it, and that's what validates it when it's sent out. So it's an emerging standard, takes about 6 months. We recently just did it, but it's worth it, I think. We'll find out.
Yeah, that just builds on the fact that we can no longer have just depend on SPF records. Right now, you have to have DKIM, ARC, DMARC, sending policies, and branding and all that. So,
Thank you, yeah.
There we go. The other thing that, as far as in our environment, I believe that the issue comes down to communication between the departments. I have plenty of times to where anytime that HR puts out any type of training or anything like that on blood pathogens or anything like that, I get them reported back on know before saying, oh, well, this must be a fish. And I even have members in IT who will report those as phishing. And I feel like I don't have the answer for you, but it's a communication breakdown, it feels like. And so that's where I feel like there's where to work at. But
we actually have a pretty nice relationship with our HR department. We got a lot of pushback before they would be well, I can't say comfortable. They're still not comfortable with these phishing simulations that we send out that look like they're coming from hr@washburn.edu. But I think after working with them for about a better part of a year and letting them know that these attacks are going to happen with or without your say-so, not from me, but from somebody else, at least with us, you have visibility on who's actually going to be clicking on these things, who's actually going to be fooled. That way, this is the much better alternative. And so eventually, in the last couple months, they've been okay with me I let them know, these are the ones that are going to come out, and people are going to get HR fishes. And she's been okay with just letting it be. And she's like, I trust your judgment, because we work with them through, just through a process, just to let them know and give them feedback on this is what we're going to do. Do you have any problems with this? But I think they trust us now, which is good.
we had to earn it as well.
Yeah.
On our initial know before test, possibly someone higher up may have been one of the clickers, and they were not happy. And
Sure. Can't make everybody happy here, but yeah. It's better if we fish you than somebody else, so. Use the,
If you want to talk, you got to go to the microphone.
As a student employee, I just have a suggestions that because we keep, as an international students, we keep applying to jobs and we don't even know where we are applying. But the problem is we get phishing emails and those are so correct. Somehow, for instance, I got a few emails saying that congratulations, we really want to interview you, and those are very convincing. The problem is a lot of international students, they're really not aware of this thing. So I'll say maybe it could be a better idea if the way we have to do other Title IX training or anything, if we have to go through one kind of training like that through the website, that could be a better idea to be aware. That's all.
And that's something that we were trying to figure out is what's the, least friction way of educating, because there was a big talk of mandatory student training. The problem is getting students to do anything is challenging, right? And sitting through another, training on top of Title IX just adds to that burden. We've been pushing real big our hot jobs, hot checks website that talks about those types of threats and what we see out there. But actually getting that commitment to train the students over an hour, that's a big lift for us. So it's not off the, how do you say it? It's not off the table, but you have to balance the time versus reward.
Yeah, balancing is a really hard thing because just to give you an example, before we went to implement KnowBe4, we were using Microsoft. When we kind of retired in part that tool and we swapped the plugins, I just went and looked how many students have reported our Shocker Blast, which is legit email, as a spam. There were 497 just for that month. This is a legit email. So all reported by students that say this is spam. So,
but to be fair to them, it is spam.
It is spam advertising, and that's what I'm saying. That's what I open with. Our institutions are the first one spamming our students. So how and faculty, and stuff. Right. But most of the students, we work on email, all day long, and we see all these emails. They're all, they're spoofing. They're legit, but we see a lot of traffic from emails from departments themselves, just offering something that in this DNA would look more like So how you can teach a student to identify, this is really legit, this is not, even if you implement SPF, DKIM, DMARC, ARC, composite authentication, I mean, it's just,
I think working with the department is first and foremost.
Correct.
Yeah, you just need to let them know, look, this doesn't look good. You're not going to get the penetration that you need from this. People are suspicious of it. I'm suspicious of it just looking at it right now.
So let me say the unpopular opinion there. You set the sending limit down to like 300. So that way when they send out this junk, when they don't think about it, it's not branded, it's just fired out from an account, heaven help me, a student account, it gets blocked. And then they're forced to actually explain, hey, why are we not using the official methods to send these messages? Why are we not going through the listserv so that way we can properly follow the spamming rules and do all the things and do all the opt-out, the things that they didn't think of before they did this. And I know it's a huge pain to my system administrator and help desk friends. However, I think it's done a lot to correct bad behavior where we can say, hey, look, you may not be aware of this, but now you are. Here's how we can do this smarter.
From our perspective, I think that it's kind of the Wild West in certain departments. And they have graduate students or a student that is working for them. And the way that they utilize that, you can just send it out from your account, and not really understanding the ramifications of that. And hey, they are taking classes, they can't receive any emails. And so then they realize that. And so it's a whole education process, and everybody does their own thing. Certain departments do this. So it gets complicated.
Are you alerted to that when a higher sending limit policy is in place and gets triggered? Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
we have different tiers for recipient rate limits.
Okay.
Depending on what you are, and if you are like a high spammer, we bump you up.
Gotcha.
A legit spammer. but yes, we do get notifications right away.
Speaking of training the students, in lieu of gen ed like billiards or country line dancing, could there not be a gen ed named protecting your digital identity and actually give them some credit hours?
That's a good idea, but you have to have the academic groups sign off on that, and that has to go into their curriculum, and there's a whole process that it has to go through to approve that. It's a great idea. I think you just have to have all of those people invested in that.
Right.
I think it's good that you brought that up, because I think there's, just like Mark said, the students are motivated differently, right? And I've been trying to I've been thinking about methods that we could maybe gamify our existing systems to kind of show them that, hey, you might get a gift card if you are the first one to report this as a fish or something like that.
Spammer.
Yeah, I know. But I think just trying to hone in on how students are motivated versus faculty, staff, I think.
Well, we have done something similar to that. I do go speak to all the freshman seminar classes, but that's a much smaller population. But, they invited me once, now they invite me every year, just because they do feel that there's a value. So the question is, okay, where do we find that sweet spot of not torturing everybody, but making that information available?
Yeah. The incentive.
Okay, so I did have a separate question about phishing, but I think we covered it. Let's just make it a lighter. What's the weirdest, most interesting cyber threat that you've had to deal with? Just something, tell us a fun story.
Wait for me?
I'm drawing a blank. Most of mine are not
Are you asking what
family
we're
appropriate.
Any kind of cyber threat, yeah.
That we're experiencing now, or that we're expecting and we find
That you've
interesting? Right?
ever dealt with, just something that everyone would find fascinating or funny.
Well, I can't wait for AI-generated video and audio to enhance phishing in general. That's going to be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't share your joy of fun on that one. I mean, that sounds absolutely petrifying if they can actually get their grammar correct.
CISOs have weird senses of humor, got it.
Well, to be fair, we did generate Tommy Lee Jones firing our student employee, and that was fantastic. You know, that showed how great the technology is with very low effort. The student thought it was actually hilarious because he was helping us. So that technology is going to go further and further, and we will see I think we're going to see some pretty humorous things out of that as well, as, you know, the attackers are also human and they're not going to be thinking of what the actual title is, and, you know, they're going to make mistakes as well.
All right, well, let's talk about having all these unmanaged student devices just hanging out on campus on our network. Give me your thoughts on that, maybe some strategies or some dreams that you have on how we might manage these.
Well, we're in the middle of working on segmenting a guest Wi-Fi network, and I think it makes a lot of sense. We've always been segmenting a lot of the BYOD networks, but I think we're going to go a little bit further and make it totally free and open and unencrypted, and warn people that this is a dangerous place to be, but it's going to help, I think, with a lot of our guests that come onto campus and just need internet access, and this will also alleviate a lot of the burden that this puts on our help desk, because every onboarding system that we've put in place for that is always burdensome to the user in some way or shape or form. But that being said, I think what's really helped us here is that any unmanaged or unknown device that tries to plug into our network, otherwise that's not wireless, does get isolated automatically by our NAC system anyway. So we have visibility, we are default denying it as soon as they touch the network. So that's how we deal with it.
So whenever this topic comes up, all I think is when Rome sat Carthage and then salted the earth, and that just feels like the right answer. Unfortunately, BYOD is not going to go away. It's just not. If you think about a university as a gigantic guest network of all these students and, you know, affiliated folks, and then a small business network attached to it. So just as Homer said, you know, segmentation, but the other end of that is data labeling. You know, right now we're starting to push data labeling of documents and emails, so that way faculty and staff understand, hey, this is something that can go on a personal device and can be stored and processed on a personal device, and this is something that can't be, and then putting up guardrails for that as well. So if something is marked as, you know, WSU restricted, one of our highest sensitivity levels, that you just can't, you know, forward it off. And that's something that over time will become part of the culture. It's going to take years, but it's going to help further divide BYOD versus organizationally owned and managed devices. The other thing too is we need to incentivize organizationally owned and managed devices by making them easier. Because if your BYOD environment and your organizationally managed environment is the exact same as far as user ease of use, you're going to encourage users to do things that they shouldn't do and push those boundaries. And so one of the things I'd really love to see, and it's more of a fantasy, is more certificate authentication, where if you connect to Wi-Fi, it grabs that certificate, you know, allows you to connect seamlessly. Same with email, you don't have to go enter password. So now there's a big, you know, value add of, hey, everything just works. You get it from ITS, Wi-Fi works, email works, Teams work. You know, you don't have to go, oh no, my password changed and now I'm going to spend the morning, you know, resetting things. So it's that decreasing friction in the areas we want them to, and then increasing that friction in areas that we don't want them to, I think is going to be the real divider in BYOD.
I agree completely, and that's a dream that I've been having. I've just been having trouble getting traction in that area from some of the other teams.
Oh, I'm crying like a soccer player. I'm, you know, rolling around on the ground. Oh, certificate-based authentication. But, you know, we will get there. It's only time.
Can I piggyback on your increasing friction comment? Because I think you touched on it. It is important to deter people from wanting to use the open Wi-Fi network, and we're thinking several different ways of doing that, which usually revolve around making internal resources not available on that network. So anything public, you can get to our university website, but if you need to use any of our internal resources, you can't use that. Plus, we're gonna try and make sure that appropriate policies on our managed devices don't use that open Wi-Fi network too, so.
Well, and that's one of the areas that I think information security and IT people get stuck in, is they go, but it's not a perfect control. It doesn't stop everything. I thought of this really weird edge case. Well, yeah, none of this is perfect.
Yeah.
If you stop 80%, that's really good. And then you're making people do something that is borderline malicious at that point. You know, they are taking steps that are far above and beyond what could be said as, you know, accidental use or just not knowing. They're literally crossing an HR boundary at that point. And so we have other ways of handling that at that point. So don't let perfection be the guide. Let it be good enough sometimes.
Okay. Compromised accounts seem to be also a common issue you guys deal with. Do you want to talk about the process that you use for handling that?
Sure. He's not here today. Aaron Hall, he's our Director of Systems and Engineering and Networking. He wrote a script, a PowerShell script that we called Smite. So it smites an account, it disables all their session tokens and authentication tokens. It puts them in a group that requires MFA if they haven't been required previously. And it forces a reset of their password. So it does all this stuff automatically right off the bat, and it also creates a ticket into our ticketing system so that we can follow up and also document that it actually did happen. So I think that's really been a game changer for us for the last few years. And I can think of a few more other enhancements to that script that I'm gonna probably ask for in the near future to make this a little bit easier for everybody going forward, so.
Well, and we do something similar, but we're also sitting back and we're saying, okay, what's the emerging threats in this space? It's OAuth 2. If you have an Azure tenant, OAuth applications are probably going to be your bane in the future. So let's make fun of Microsoft. That's everybody's favorite game. CISA came out and was very brutal towards them. I thought that was vastly inappropriate. But they basically called Microsoft negligent in protecting their executive mailboxes back in November, I want to say. You know, they found everything from missing MFA to weak passwords, as you would expect for executives. And how did that attacker maintain persistence? It was OAuth 2. They're able to get an OAuth 2 application in on that user, then sit there and read their email. And so that I consider is a fairly advanced attack, tactic. We don't see that often, generally in the wild, but I think we are. I think that's coming, and I think we're going to start to see more and more, either malicious through, a malicious means, or just through companies' data harvesting. If you go into your Microsoft tools, your CASB that Microsoft provides, you can actually see what rights OAuth 2 applications have. And some of those are just straight up revolting. Some of the stuff that I've seen, not just with WSU, but in general, are things like somebody bought a toothbrush that tried to get OAuth rights to actually read their mailbox. Yeah, thank you for that. Monster Energy, thank you for your, Modern Warfare 2 add-in that needs to read email. Nobody likes you for that. So we're seeing some extraordinarily bad behavior from some of these companies that I know, that's the same look I gave when I saw it. It's just extraordinarily bad behavior that I'd argue is borderline malicious. So that's stuff that we're trying to build to for the future and take into consideration when we have script very similar to Smite.
We're always fighting against really lax security cultures, particularly with Microsoft. That's been going on for years, and it's really unfortunate.
It is, and I look at, Microsoft did a big security push with Windows XP because they frankly were not doing the right things, missing host-based firewall, safe defaults. They still do that. You build a domain on server 2022 and it's downright incompetent. LM hashes, that's ridiculous in this day and age. SMB v1 enabled by default. Are you kidding me? Yeah, I know. Talk about embarrassing. Now, they are doing a big push, but I look at Azure very similar. Out of the box it comes, without some of the bigger guardrails. And so the next battle as well over user accounts and business takeover is really going to be in securing your Azure footprint. Do you have good conditional access? You're going to have to make hard decisions like, hey, are we going to allow people to work from anywhere? Well, the answer is, well, yeah, we want that until you define what anywhere is. Do we want people working from North Korea? Probably not. No, I don't think so. I think there would probably be a law issue in there, a legal problem, a safety issue, a general bad idea issue. So why are we allowing, given they have the /24, they don't really count, but why are we allowing North Korea to authenticate to our Azure instance? Those are the questions you really have to be asking yourself when it comes to, business account takeover is, yes, we can't block everybody out. That's ridiculous. But can we start to put limitations on there that really do make sense?
Or harden the gateways that we allow that kind of access to, so, yeah.
Yeah, we get a lot of emails where they go, my Surfshark VPN doesn't work with your email system. Can you fix that? The answer is no. No. Stop using Surfshark. AT&T, Cox Communication, they'll steal your private information, DNS records for free. You shouldn't pay Surfshark to do that for you. Just unless you want to watch Netflix in a different country, I'm just saying that is awesome. But if you do think you're getting some sort of privacy out of there, please come see me afterwards, because the answer is no. They spy on you just like everybody else.
At that point, you're effectively giving that company your data, because you don't know where that server is, but you're paying for this VPN, and you're trusting them to take your data and not look through it. It's completely asinine, in my opinion.
Well, the trust me bro terms of service told me they wouldn't, so I don't know why you're concerned.
All right, well, we got about 2 minutes left, so does anybody have any comments from either the group or from the gallery?
I do have a quick question.
Microphone, please.
Microphone, so that I can hear you in the back.
Aw, all right.
So this is kind of like jumping on to the previous point about trying to do, what's the word I'm looking for? Security training in higher education for students and stuff. Do you think in our modern digital world it would be important for primary education, not like just higher education and stuff, to have a mandatory, basically a digital security training, essentially? So it's mandatory as you're going through your primary school to have, I do apologize. Basically, do you think it would be beneficial in our digital world to have a class in our primary education that we go through that essentially trains us not to fall for phishing stuff, for example?
Absolutely. I don't know why we're getting rid of home ec, to be honest. And, home ec or, how to balance your checkbook, that kind of stuff. Yeah, digital security awareness, absolutely. They're entering a very dangerous world now.
I'm going to give a philosophy answer, but a lot of information security awareness training comes down to discernment. When it's phishing training, you're telling people to have discernment in what they do. They're asking the question is, did I receive this? Does this make sense? Does it make sense in context? Have I done this before? And that's probably one of the hardest things to teach. If you think about the goals of higher education, it's to teach that ability to think outside the box, to have that level of discernment. So I look at K through 12 and I say, obviously we need to teach them something, right? This is the first generation that really has grown up with this level of immersion in technology. So we can't look at the parents and say, why didn't you teach them this? Because, the parents may or may not grown up in that generation. So they don't really have those skills to transfer. But we also have to accept that, at different age levels, different things should be taught to really kind of get them in that mindset to help them grow on, hey, email is hostile, and start off there. Please don't use Fortnite, just stop. There has to be some levels of thought process gone into how do we build this up over the years, and not just, that one point thing that they really won't.
Baseline curriculum for all kids, yeah. I'd be behind that, but good luck trying to get everybody on the same page.
Yeah, that's as I say, that's a philosophy goal.
Yeah, sure.
There's no way that I'm going to tackle that mountain.
We could also just teach them how to train AI to do that discernment for them.
That is the third scariest thing I've heard today. I'm not going to sleep tonight.
No AI. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure.
All right, well, we are out of time. Hopefully you found this conversation helpful.